is the Instax Mini 99, the latest in the Instax Mini line, and as soon as I saw the advertisement, I was sold. This camera has 6 unique modes that produce pictures with different colors. We got blue, green, light leak, and this means that you can take a million pictures of pretty flowers and they will all come out differently. If you know me, you know that the easiest way to sell me something is to give me different novelty settings. Different modes to experiment with, I just love them. I've talked about the Instax Mini Evo in the past, which also comes stocked with a variety of novelty settings. But unlike the Instax Mini Evo, the color effects on the Mini 99 are all done in camera, analog style, with no digital manipulation whatsoever. And this is made possible by these little LEDs inside next to the lens that expose the film as you take a picture. So, if you like the creative concept of the Instax Mini Evo, but you can't get past the digital-analog hybridness of it, then the Instax Mini 99 could be a great option for you. In this video, I'm going to talk about the specs, the modes, what I learned shooting with it, as well as some helpful tidbits and an analysis of my results. If you like this video, you can leave a like, you can leave a comment letting me know what you think. You can subscribe to my channel for new photography-related content almost every week. And of course, you can sit back and enjoy while I talk about specs. So, the Instax Mini 99 is an analog film camera that takes Instax Mini film. That's these guys right here. I've got 1,000 of them. Actually, I might even be close to 1,000 at this point. Ooh, I'll put a count. It sells for around $250 Canadian, which sounds like a lot, and it is a lot, but you do get a lot more bang for your buck with this camera compared to some of the cheaper, much more basic Instax Mini options. It takes this nice, rechargeable lithium-ion battery right here. The battery situation in these things has been a sticking point for me in the past, but the battery life on this is really good, and I'm happy to see that it's rechargeable, so no complaints from me there. It has a 60mm lens with the aperture locked at f10, which is a fairly narrow aperture. It's got 2 shutter buttons, one here, and honestly, I don't think I've ever used this one. One here. And this is to help accommodate your hand position depending on how you're holding the camera. This camera loves dials. It is all dials. This little dial turns it on and also controls the focal setting. This dial controls the color mode, and this dial controls the exposure setting. There are 3 focal settings to choose from. You have a close-up setting, a mid-range setting, and a everything else setting. The close range macro / selfie mode is pretty useful for taking pictures of flowers, and I really like taking pictures of flowers with this. The Tumblr aesthetic is making a comeback in my subconscious, and the light leak feature with a picture of a flower just hits that aesthetic right on the nose for me. In addition to the focal modes on this lens apparatus, you'll also find this little toggle that toggles the vignette on and off. Isn't that the cutest little manual control? Oh my god, I love this detail. It is a little unnecessary, but such a well-designed feature. I'm going to talk about the color modes last, because it's a nice segue into my next section where I talk about my results. But first, I want to talk about the other modes. And these other modes are accessible through the LCD screen on the back of the camera. Relegated to the additional features section on the product listing of this camera, these other modes are a big part of what sold me on the camera in the first place. It has a bulb mode, double exposure mode, indoor mode, and sports mode. And you can turn the flash off, which is great. I love that because I hate it when I'm about to take a really beautiful close-up shot of a flower and the flash goes off and washes it out completely. Not aesthetic. All of these features are accessible by toggling through a pictorial menu on this LCD screen, which also keeps track of how many photos you've got left and the amount of battery life left. I will give you one guess as to which one of these modes I was most excited about. Easy to guess, it was double exposure mode. Oh my god, the double exposure mode is so good. You might remember me complaining about the double exposure mode in the Instax Mini Evo because the images you take are just digitally overlaid instead of actually double exposed. But this camera does it for real. The first 2 packs of film that I shot with this were pretty much all light leak double exposures. Can you blame me though? They look so good. Oh my god, and they all kind of match. Beautiful. But besides double exposure, the other feature I was excited about is bulb mode, which lets you take a picture while holding the shutter button down, and it will expose the film for as long as you're holding the shutter button down, up to 10 seconds. I thought this would be a really, really fun mode to play with because light painting and long exposures at night, blah, blah, blah. But I actually haven't used it that much because I burnt 4 frames trying to take pictures of the Aurora Borealis, and it turns out that at f10, a 10-second exposure with 800 ISO film is not enough to capture much of anything. I just got a bunch of really dark shots with like very, very faint lights in the distance. Not a vibe. It does come with a tripod thread and a little grip bar thing that screws onto the bottom, so it is possible to take long exposures with this. I just haven't managed to get any that I want to share. And after wasting 4 frames, I'm kind of scared to try again. As for the other modes, indoor mode and sport mode, haven't tried them. I assume that they both just adjust the shutter speed versus flash calculations. And speaking of shutter speed, I should mention also that the shutter speed range on this thing is between 1.8 seconds and 1/400th of a second. So not wicked fast. I wouldn't be fooled by the sports mode if I were you. There is a good reason why I haven't had a need for sports mode and indoor mode, and that reason is this little dial, which is the exposure setting dial. It is very useful. I have rarely felt the need to use the settings on the extreme ends, so that's D- and L+, but the D and the L settings have come in handy. If I'm outside shooting on a bright sunny day, I will crank it down one notch to D. Vice versa, if I'm inside, maybe taking some flash portraiture, I'll crank it up to L to get a bit brighter of an image. This camera is pretty good at metering if you're using the exposure dial correctly. It took me a few failed frames to figure out exactly how the dial would affect my images, but now that I've got the hang of it, I waste far fewer frames to exposure issues than I do on my other, less predictable Instax cameras. But enough about this dial, let's talk about this dial over here, the fun one, the innovative one, the color settings. There are 6 different colors to choose from, and they are not labeled per se. Each mode is assigned a set of initials, which if you don't have the initials memorized and what they stand for, you either have to Google it every time or just take a gamble and see how the photo comes out. That was what I chose to do because I find that more fun. So the modes are LL, SP, SM, LB, WT, and FG. And you've also got the N setting, which is nothing. In my head, these stand for light leak, slightly pale, slight maroon, lake blue, white and frog green. In reality, and I just looked this up for this video, they are light leak, sepia, soft magenta, light blue, warm tone, and frog green. I could not get past WT being white. White. I had no reason to believe that it was white. At no point did I ever get a photo from it that was white, but I avoided it because I thought that the white light would wash out my photos. I had just made this up in my head and it stuck forever. And only recently, like for this video, did I look this up and I was like, warm tone? Have I even used that setting? And the answer was no. So I went out and took a few pictures with the warm tone setting and discovered that it's actually a lovely vintagey effect. I like it quite a bit, and I wish that I had tried it sooner instead of just making something up in my head about it and believing it. So sorry about that. I don't have many example photos with the warm tone setting, and that's why. I really like the color modes, and it looks cool on the dial, but I find the initials thing very confusing. I would never have assumed that SP stands for sepia, and I would never have assumed that SM stands for soft magenta, or really any of these. I had a hard time even just guessing. But speaking of color modes, I really want to talk about color modes. I feel like it's going to be better suited to the next section, so let's wrap up this specs section and talk about my experience and results. So, I tried to shoot with this in as many different lighting conditions and situations as possible. I wanted to get a bunch of example photos with each mode, with options for color modes on this dial and other modes in the back. There's a lot of different fun combinations to be made with this camera, but despite having a plethora of options available for creative expression, I pretty much just stuck with double exposure light leak. I got really stuck on this combo, okay? The light leak color is kind of an orangey red, and the location of the light leak changes on each shot. So I think only one of the 4 LEDs fires each time you take a picture with it. All of the pictures that I took with this setting combo kind of match. They look great on my wall. The double exposure adds some elements of interest. It is flower season out. All of the flowers are in bloom all around the neighborhood, and they are the perfect texture for some double exposure shots. I did try to get some double exposure shots with the other color settings as well. Here's green, blue, and magenta. And I also tested out a few questions that I had about this setting. So you may be wondering, what happens if you take the first exposure in one color setting and the second exposure in a different color setting? Do you get both colors overlaid? The answer is no. It only exposes the last color mode that you had selected. So if you're doing a double exposure and you take the first exposure with the magenta setting and the second exposure with the blue setting, when the image prints out, it will only be exposed with the blue. I also wondered if it would be possible to take more than 2 exposures on a single frame if I set the camera to double exposure mode, took the first picture, turned the camera off, turned it back on, set it to double exposure mode again, and then took 2 more pictures. Unfortunately, the answer to that is also no. If you turn the camera off while halfway through a double exposure, the print will automatically eject and you will only get the first shot. If you want to take top quality double exposures, like me, you can copy my method. The first shot you take is a texture shot, and so it's something like flowers, for example, or waves, or grass, or whatever. And then the second shot is going to be a silhouette shot. So it's a hand or a person's face or some kind of silhouette against a really bright background. Like the sky works perfectly. And what that does is it burns away the texture shot everywhere other than in the silhouette. And you get this really nice double exposure. You don't have to do it that way though, of course, and I personally had a lot of fun playing with double exposures at night with flash as well, so lots of options there. Anyways, besides light leak, my favorite color settings were magenta and green. Magenta kind of complements light leak visually. It reminds me of the 60s and 70s when they had color photography, but the dyes weren't very stable, and so the prints would fade to these kind of bright red tones. Super vintage vibe, I really dig it. And I like the green color mode because it kind of zhuzhes up my outdoor photography even on overcast days. And that word, zhuzhed, I spell it differently in the script every time I use it. I don't even know if there is a spelling for it. I don't even know how I would Google how to spell it. This time I spelled it J-U-J-E-D. How would you spell it? Leave a comment below. Anyway, I like this photo of a forest that I took with the green setting. It looks lush and verdant even though it was kind of crap weather out. I think it's really good for that. Green would also be cool for like a more industrial vibe. There was this double exposure that I took with the green setting that gave me sort of a matrix feel, and I bet you could do something really fun along those lines. That is all I had to say about the color settings. I do want to mention briefly that this camera is much better in daylit environments than it is in studio. I would not recommend using this in studio. I tried briefly and I failed miserably. I'm not sure why I had so much more success with the SQ40 in studio than I had with this. I tried different exposure settings, but consistently wound up with underexposed, underwhelming results. Definitely more of a natural light camera, in my opinion. That is everything that I had to say about my experience, and we're approaching the end of the video here. I'm gonna answer the question that I get asked most often about this camera. Should you buy the Instax Mini 99 or the Instax Mini Evo? And honestly, it depends. The Instax Evo has a lot more to offer in terms of creative settings. There's a whole slew of lens effects that are made possible by its digital components. If you're looking for pure creativity, the Evo is a great choice. But a lot of people get hung up on that digital aspect. When you take a photo with the Instax Mini Evo, you're not actually taking an instant photo. You're taking a digital photo and then printing it out on Instax Mini film. You don't have the same experimental guess and test aspect as you get with the Instax Mini 99. You know what the photo is going to look like, so you don't need to watch it with bated breath as it develops. If this feels like cheating to you, or just feels like something other than instant photography, the Mini 99 is going to be a great way to resolve those feelings. It has a lot of the same creative potential, maybe as much as is possible in an analog format. You have less tools available, but the ones that are available are all mechanical, built-in, physical aspects that are influencing each photo. And I guess it ultimately comes down to how you feel about the medium. What aspects of instant photography excite you? Are you more interested in the process or in the result? I had a great time with both of these cameras and used both of them to get some beautiful photos for the walls. So I can confidently say that you will have some great creative options regardless of which camera you choose. That is the end of today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it. I appreciate you. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, comment. If this video inspired you to go out and take some pictures on your Instax Mini, you can buy film for it by clicking my affiliate link below with Freestyle Photo LA. I get a portion of proceeds from this link, so it's a great way to help out the channel because you get film and I get money and the channel gets funded and everyone's happy. Another way that you can support the channel is to buy me a coffee by clicking the link in the description below. That is a one-time $5 donation, and all proceeds from that link go directly to supporting the channel, helping to improve the quality of content that I'm able to offer, buying things like $250 cameras to review. So thank you guys so much to anyone who considers that. I really super appreciate it. Thank you. I will see you guys next week with a new video. I might do another video essay. I kind of want to talk about Tumblr photography trends. It's like on my mind recently, so we'll see how that goes. And in the meantime, I want you guys to stay sharp and don't forget to keep shooting. Bye guys.